Have you ever found yourself brimming with a brilliant idea to enhance your community, but just unsure how to transform that into reality? Well, today you're in for a treat because you're about to discover a unique opportunity to turn your ideas into tangible outcomes through the 24-Hour Citizens Project. Joining us today is the visionary behind this remarkable initiative, Butch Roussel. Butch's journey from college football to become a community leader and advocate is nothing short of inspirational. In this episode, he will share the fascinating story behind the inception of the 24-Hour Citizens Project, shed a little bit of light on its profound mission, and share tales of incredible successes. Moreover, Butch is going to unravel the intricacies of the competition, providing insights into how they actually function, and offering valuable guidance on how you can actively participate, attend, and lend your support to empower your community. So Butch, thank you so much for being here, brother.
Happy to be here.
It's so good to see you in this building.
I know. I know. I'm no stranger to this building, though.
No, you're not.
I mean,
You're not.
Yeah, by association.
By marriage.
Exactly.
But multiple times too. Like for a while you were here, and then you made a family, and then your wife came back.
That's it.
For our audience that don't know who you are, like break it down for us.
Yeah. So my name is Butch Roussel. My real name is George Roussel. That's actually a fun fact that no one knows.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I'm from Hammond, Louisiana, originally.
And when did you move here?
Man, I moved here for college.
Uh-huh.
So I've got sort of a whole generation of family that have ties to USL, SLI, and now UL. And actually came here from 2002 to 2006. I played football. I left. I went up to grad school in Maryland and went to Johns Hopkins University, studied biotechnology business. Came home, moved to Hammond for about 6 months, lived out of my car. Came to Lafayette for a weekend, and I found a house off of Oak Lawn that you don't even remember this, but you had listed.
Really? Which? Oh, was
Yep.
it?
It was Jed Medier's house.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 1120 Oak Lawn. And I bought the house in 2010, and Lafayette's been my home ever since.
I remember because at the time it was Roz Kenny was showing you.
Exactly.
Y'all came to one of our open houses.
Yep.
Shoot, when was that?
Man, that was in 2010
Yeah.
or 2011.
I do remember that.
Yeah. So anyway, I've been here ever since.
And you're still in the same neighborhood.
Still in the same neighborhood. I bought 3 houses within, like quarter of a mile from each other, all in the same neighborhood. It's a hard place to leave.
Well, before we get into like what you're doing in your project, let's talk about the neighborhood. Like, why Oak Lawn?
Man, one, like the history. So, Oak Lawn Heights is a place where, I've got a lot of friends that do campaigning in the neighborhood. My favorite social experiment is actually to go and knock on doors and campaign.
And you need some better hobbies.
I'm taking you with me.
No, I can appreciate that because like my mom was running for judge, and it's only that first like driveway that you have to walk up to and you knock on that door. After that, it gets easy.
Well, it's I call it a social experiment because you never know what you're going to get. There's this sort of level,
right?
And we've done this as a community, not to get off on a tangent, but like we build fences around our houses. Like we have Ring doorbells. We have done a really great job of building barriers around the places that we live where knocking on someone's door is almost like so like intrusive.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, when you knock on doors campaigning in my neighborhood, what you learn is that there's sort of this historical value there where they ask who you are, who you're married to, and then you get to have a conversation about, well, my wife's mom grew up in the house over there. Oh, that's the Bunkleys. And then, this person. So anyway, it's got that appeal. I guess you would brand us as downtown people.
Yeah.
We love downtown. And anyway, it's just a fun sort of Lafayette-centric neighborhood.
Well, I don't want to get too far off topic, but, I lived downtown for 15 years, but now we live out off of Bayou Tortue. And you were talking about fences. Our neighborhood has no fences.
Oh, that's good.
Which is, it's great, but it's also, anybody, it's basically one giant park.
Right.
So like we've got, especially now we've got kids and they just roam like a a pack of dogs. We're gonna go from house to house, and there's no backyard, there's no fence. So like, I mean, there's backyards, but it's all open space. So there is something to say for having a fence, but I do like it out there because there is no fence, and the kids can be kids. They can roam free. Yeah, you know, it's like free chickens. So, you know.
Yeah. Well, your yard sounds like the yard that my kids need to come hang out in.
Anytime, man. But you all have a nice pool, and
we do. You know. It's a great neighborhood. The neighbors are great. Like it's it's the neighborhood where you've got, for Halloween, you've got the streets filled. You've got, golf cart Santa. You've got people putting baked goods on your doorstep. I mean, it's just community. That's what we're all about.
Well, I can't get away from real estate, so I'm always gravitating toward those conversations. But amazing neighborhood. I've always loved that area. But tell us about your project. I mean, I want to know how it all came to be, but give us a description of what it is and why you came up with it.
Yeah, I'll start at the very beginning because I feel like that's the most appropriate, and I'll pick up where we left off, where I bought this house in 2010 from the great Jim Keaty.
Yeah.
And, I had moved back to Lafayette.
The real listing agent was out that day, and so I'm sorry about that.
That's right. I came back, and when you spend time here in college, it's very different than what it looks like when you move back after being gone for a couple of years. And I'm looking around saying, like, where are all my friends? How do I get reconnected to Lafayette, where my life, in a previous chapter was all about football and a college experience. So I had some doubts for a couple of months there, like how I was going to get re-engaged. And a buddy of mine challenged me to apply to this program called Leadership Lafayette, which is Leadership Acadiana now.
Right.
Which, for those that are listening, like, it's basically like, I'm probably doing a poor job of branding it, but it's like a boot camp for all things community, where you get to learn about, Acadiana and like the inner workings of local government. And it was the first time I had ever been exposed.
What year were you?
Man, I was class 25.
And that was what year?
That was probably over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was like 2000.
Oh, yeah. It was probably 2012. Yeah. Yeah, 2012. So we're talking over 10 years ago. This isn't just like a couple years back. So I went through the program, but what I learned was, one, a lot about Lafayette, which is the goal. And two, it was the first time I'd ever got this taste of, like, this is what community is supposed to be like. And so what ended up happening is, going through that program, I'd reestablished myself in Lafayette. I've got sort of these community-minded friends that I'm hanging out with. And all of a sudden the conversations, like over a beer, outside at night, are more like, man, we need bike racks downtown. Right. Man, I'm like an avid runner in town. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we had drinking water fountains around my running routes?
Yeah.
And so, the risk at sort of, sharing those ideas amongst people is that they're just that, they're ideas, and they don't go anywhere. And so what if there was an opportunity where we can convert those ideas for individual citizens to a reality?
Right.
And so the big question is, how the heck do you do that?
That's an interesting concept in general, because everywhere in every city people just talk, hey, wouldn't it be great if I was mayor, we would have X, Y, Z, but nothing really gets done.
Yeah. And, I mean, we live in an age of keyboard warriors. We talk about that all the time.
Well, explain that. What's a keyboard warrior?
Well, it's people that have all the confidence in the world to go on their Facebook account or Instagram or Twitter X and sort of voice their opinions or ideas or potential solutions for, like, the big topics that come up in a community, but they live on the internet somewhere, and there's no action associated with them. And look, I think that there's an important dialogue to be had, in the social media environment. So I'm not discrediting that at all. I'm just saying that there is a need for action in their citizens. So,
somebody takes action, somewhere,
right?
You know what I mean? And so, like, instead of just leaving it up to, somebody else, why don't you take it? I mean, think of it when I'm thinking back, like, just all the many, many years, and Tommy and I have had this conversation before, like, man, you know what we need is XYZ. We could invent it and it'd be great. And then next thing you know, somebody invented it. You're like, damn, they stole my idea. It's like, but I never even shared it with anybody but, me and Tommy.
That's right. That's right. A buddy and I always talk because we had an idea called Thumb Chef back in 2011. And it was basically waiter, and
you invented waiter before.
I'm the guy that invented waiter. I'm taking all the credit for it.
Hell, dude.
And we've got this whole markup and pseudo business plan. And, we didn't do anything with it.
Yeah.
But it's just fun to look back and say, man, if we weren't just idea guys and action oriented guys, maybe we would be waiter.
Well, which you've kind of created this pathway for that.
Yeah.
Which I think, is phenomenal. It's like you can take these ideas and not just talk about them. You can actually present them and.
Exactly. Let me finish that thought. Basically what we identified, years ago is that, talk is cheap and ideas sort of sometimes just live and die around the campfire at night. And, in addition to that, and is that you've got organizations in town, you've got local government, you've got nonprofits that sort of do things. And I think us as citizens, we sort of have this mindset that like the bike racks that we want to see in front of the businesses downtown or wherever are somebody else's problem. They're not problems of our own. Right.
We'll use them.
That's right.
We'd love to have them.
We're consumers.
Like, I'm not gonna.
That's right. I mean, I pay taxes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And so I think, and if you asked any local government, I think there's some level of permission that they want to give to somebody to be proactive about taking on things in the community. So my point is that we saw this huge gap for opportunity in sort of converting ideas to action from citizens that had no idea how to get them done. So the dudes around the campfire that want to see drinking water fountains in their popular running routes, have no idea how to, one, build a water fountain, how to, two, identify locations for that water fountain, and three, frankly, don't feel empowered to get them done. And so what if there was a process in place called the 24-Hour Citizen Project that sort of nurtured people's ideas and empowered them to get them done and essentially held Jim's hand all the way from idea to execution to completion. Right. That's the concept.
Yeah. I love it because it's kind of like it gets rid of the excuses.
Yeah.
Hey, you really do have a good idea? Well, let's see it.
That's right.
Let's see work it out. Think about the challenges, the struggles, the bottlenecks, and then let's work it out and figure it out. Now you have no excuse.
Yeah. And it's interesting, and we'll get to this I think towards the end of our chat, but failure is such an important part of this. And so we've got to make sure that people feel that failure is okay. And that if your project isn't as perfect as you want it to be, that it's okay. There's an appropriate pivot there, and it doesn't make it less valuable.
Well, that's where a lot of growth comes from, right?
That's right.
You figure it out. Well, maybe it wasn't that idea. Maybe it was a little bit better, or something just a little bit different.
Yeah.
Different angle, different whatever.
Exactly. So we essentially, years ago, Jim, we had this whole thing. We wanted citizens to do stuff, which I think is not the new problem in the community. Every community, I think at least in Lafayette scale, has, this whole mantra that the same 10 people do everything. And that's just sort of how it goes, at least, in sort of the civic engagement piece. And it's not really 10 people, but there's a small, part of the population that sees their community as their own and wants to pursue it. So the big task that we had,
which is, it's an interesting concept. What you just said is, I think, really important. I mean, people think that other people have more means, more, purpose to they should be doing that versus them. One of our neighbors near where I live is Matt Stuller, and people say, oh, well, he created Parish Proud, but he's got the resources. Most people don't know he is out there picking up trash on a weekly basis. And I see him by himself picking up trash, and if he can do it, why not anyone? You know what I'm saying? So I definitely believe there's a void between that empowerment of like, when do I step in and actually take action?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. And I don't know what the answer is. And I think a lot of communities struggle with that, because I don't know that there's a confidence issue. I don't know. I think part of it, and I'm sort of in this phase of life personally now where, I go to work every day. Some days I work really long. I come home to my family at night, right? And then like I go enjoy some kind of amenity on the weekend. And like that's sort of all I have time for.
Right.
And that's what fulfills me, right? But like there's this other aspect where like we really have to feel like the community needs us.
Yeah.
We really do. And communities do need us. And there aren't enough people shouting that to the rooftops. And look, that could look like Matt Steller making a big donation to his own nonprofit, or that could be him picking up the trash.
Yeah.
Both very important.
Well, it's interesting too that, Lafayette is filled with all of these really great, charities and nonprofit organizations that are there to, make our whole community better. And we were talking about this before we got on, is it's easy to get sucked into the community that way. And there's so many different great charities and great things. It can be sometimes paralyzing and you don't do anything at all.
Yeah.
That's happened to me. And, it's interesting, like before COVID, it was just like one thing after the other. And we were in this rhythm, and then COVID happened. Mm-hmm. Everything freaking stopped.
Yep.
And, when it started kicking back on, it like time with your family became more and more valuable, because now we got birthday parties, we've got, charity events, we've got office events, school events, athletics, all of that, which just came back with a force.
Yeah.
I wasn't really prepared for that. I was like, man, it was kind of easy. We're taking it easy. Remember the drive-by birthday parties? Oh, we'll just have to drive by and say hi and then roll out. But now it's just more time consuming, which it actually sucks you in to be more part of the community itself, which I find, we were saying this earlier, like it's not like that in other places.
Yeah. I think too, to piggyback on that, it's not like that in other places. And I could tell you from living in other places, I've tried to make a case to all of my family members that don't live here, like why Lafayette? Yeah. And I think it's because, like we talk about music, we talk about culture, like those are all the obvious things that your listeners know about Lafayette. But the thing that keeps me here, other than the people, the music, and the culture, are that I feel like Lafayette needs me. And like,
that's interesting, man.
It's because this
purpose.
is
you have a purpose, and I totally dig that. Like I think, because it's hard to articulate why Lafayette, but that does make the biggest difference, I think.
Yeah,
right?
And it's got nothing to do with me, but this is sort of the land of opportunity where like Lafayette is beautiful in some areas, but ugly in the other. I mean, we talk about my great neighborhood in Oaklawn Heights, but what we don't talk about often enough is a half a mile down the street or a mile down the street from me is a family that lives in a food desert.
Yeah.
Right. And so like if we lived in this perfect community with all the amenities that it had to offer, you wouldn't get sort of this outpouring of love and sacrifice for this place. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Really interesting concept. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, if you didn't have that, you wouldn't have that, the compassion.
Exactly. And you've never thought
makes a lot of difference. That really does make sense, because I lived in Boulder, Colorado, where there is nothing but perfect harmony.
Yeah.
And there is no purpose for the community. Yeah. There's nobody really trying to fix anything, because everything was so perfect.
Yep.
That makes a lot of sense.
And the reason why you don't see it often enough is because you don't knock on doors campaigning for people.
That's right. That's right.
And I mean that in a joking way, but also a serious way.
No,
there is something beautiful about knocking on doors in different neighborhoods around town, and the things that you learn and see that like you would never see if you didn't walk.
Right.
So
10 years ago, 10 plus years ago, you were in Lafayette leadership. Is that where this came up? Like you were on one of the retreats and thinking about how you can make a difference?
Yeah, if I have to be really specific, it did. It came up in one of the sessions. I was in the back and I was writing down on a notepad.
Yeah.
And I wish I still had that notepad because I wonder how ugly this initial concept looked. But man,
how did it evolve from that idea to this project that you have now today?
Yeah, well, I started I'll tell you this. I forgot about this step, but like basically I had this concept, and then there was this event called TEDx that was coming to Vermilion Street, and they had a speaker application that was going out, a call for speakers to come up. And a buddy of mine told me, like, you should give a talk. You should like do a TEDx talk in Lafayette. I was like, no, like I really don't like talking in front of people, not my jam. But, I got to thinking about it, and I had this concept, and I thought, the only way that I think I would ever execute this is if I stood up in front of a crowd of 250 people and I shared it, because it creates a level of accountability.
Right. That's right.
And during that, what if I told everyone that I was going to do this thing and I did it?
Yeah, that's a huge commitment.
It sure is. So that was one aspect of it.
So you actually did the TEDx,
mm-hmm.
and that's when you brought this whole concept of how it was going to make an impact on the community.
Exactly. Yeah, and it was called the 48-hour. The talk was titled, how to impact your community ... all in 48 hours, and then the concept evolved into 24 hours. But right before that, there was sort of this sort of critical moment where I had started talking to people about this whole concept of citizen engagement and how do we move citizens' ideas forward. And so we had this concept called Civic Side. And we decided to create a community crowdfunding website, and we needed a launch project. And so if you know Kate Durio, she's sort of the super citizen in town that, every citizen should try and model. But she had this concept to build a parklet in downtown, which is sort of a sitting area that takes over a parking spot. So I told her, like, look, we're building this website. We needed to launch this website, and she had the perfect project. We launched on a Thursday. It was fully funded in a couple of hours. And the Lafayette's first parklet, this is back in, 2014, 13.
It was right across from
Pop's Po' Boys.
Pop's Po' Boys.
Yeah. So anyway, so it was sort of those two things where, it helped us sort of...
Well, so it was 48-hour project. Why did you move to 24-hour project? Just sound better?
More aggressive.
More aggressive?
Yeah, we were like
more urgency, more like time is of the essence. Like, let's get it done.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, explain that piece of it.
Okay. So the whole concept is sort of built around sort of the human mind a little bit, where like if I've got this
like 10-minute abs, now it's 5-minute abs. Like I gotta go harder.
not the body, Jim. So it's basically like what motivates people, and so if you have an idea, how do I make sure that like Jim really follows through on his ideas? So like the first is like you've got to have confidence. One, you've got to have the idea. So like I've got to tap into that. Like, what is Jim's idea? Does Jim believe in his idea? And once we have that figured out, then we move to like, how do I make sure that Jim feels comfortable pursuing his idea? And so we then introduce like people to help you along. And then we do a big event where you stand up in front of a crowd of people and you do
just like you did.
Exactly what we did. And you share that idea. And so like the concept in a very basic, boring term is like a Shark Tank for community projects. So basically what we do all year round is recruit ideas from citizens. We seek applications on those ideas. We sort of gather all the ideas. We select ideas to compete. We coach those ideas up to a point of a big event where people then pitch to compete for funding.
So Butch, you actually, I didn't realize y'all are actually coaching them to help them with their presentation and so that they're more comfortable delivering it.
It's the stuff that nobody sees, the project management aspect of it all. And I think it's necessary because, you know, we don't want just capable citizens.
Or just ideas.
You've
got to be able to articulate those ideas and like, why would that be important? What's the problem it's solving?
Exactly.
Going through that whole process.
Exactly. And you know, it's a learning opportunity. You're talking about nonprofits in town. Like there's sort of a debate as to, you know, whether or not we have too many nonprofits, which I think is a great problem for communities like ours to have. But what you realize too is you get applications from people throughout the year that like are passionate about like a thing. So it's like, I got an idea to feed the homeless, or like do this, you know, build this bathroom for the homeless community. And like, they had no idea of the work that Catholic Charities was doing. Right. And that's like no shade on the individual citizen.
Sure.
Right. But it's,
we, you know, cause we're friends with Kim and Catholic Charities.
Right.
And like, you know, a lot of the times, like they're already providing that. It'd be better for them to support Catholic Charities and go out and try to feed some people. And
exactly. So we're matchmakers in the community, you know, we really are. And so it's sort of been neat to sort of, you know, be part of this process and see the sort of byproduct that comes from it. You know, and the sort of the many connections amongst citizens who like, you know, we do these things like, you know, we get questions all the time. Well, how do you get the ideas? Which I think is like is a valid question. It's been something that we continue to try and be reiterative about every year. But like the best way to do it is to get people face to face. And we did this thing called idea speed dating, where like you show up and we do the speed dating style, like idea share, where you share for 3 minutes, I share for 3 minutes, right? And
now, are people coming to that with like ideas that they want to just pitch to see, hey, does anybody else like them? Or is it like completely off the wall? Oh, I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, but there's a lot of magic that happens during those shares, because what you might end up with is you and I have the same idea. And we're like, Jim, you know, like I never knew you before tonight, but like, we both want to install a musical instrument library. Like, holy smokes, what a great thing. And then we end up working together.
Right.
Right. So you end up pairing people with similar interests. And sometimes people come to those ideas or those events with like solid ideas. And you're like, phew, you've got it together. You got other people whose idea like live at 30,000 feet. And then like, we know that we're going to have to coach that idea.
Or it could be a solid idea. And you can be like, oh, well, they've already got that.
Exactly.
He forgot. Like,
exactly.
By the way, go check this out.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I've done that before too.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So anyway, it's all about, you know, recruiting ideas, and sort of collecting those ideas, trying to identify good projects, and then we just thrust them into this fun, community-spirited event. And you know, like, frankly, I can't stand to call it Shark Tank for community projects because I feel like I'm underselling the dang thing. Right. It's
well, explain it to us. Like, so that's coming up.
Yeah,
you're getting to the end. So I think it's next week.
Yeah, it's Saturday, November 11th.
November 11th.
It's going to be at ACA. And basically you've got 7 teams that were selected about 2 months ago that have been working on refining their ideas, refining their pitch. I mean, at this point, all of these teams have sort of a plan for execution in place. Like anybody could get funded, but they show up on a Friday, and we actually, when they show up on a Friday, we've got meetings set up with people from the community starting at 6 p.m. And this is not a part of the event that's open to the public. But basically, if you have an idea and you've been selected to participate, you show up, you have no idea, you know that you're going to be working until midnight. That's all you know. And you show up and I say, Jim, here, you've got a schedule of meetings for tonight with all the people that our committees feel like are necessary to get your idea to the finish line. And you look at it and you're like, you're meeting with your city council people. Oh, that's cool. You know, like, here I am meeting with like the 4 people that I would have never been able to meet with had this not been sort of put in front of me.
Right. Super cool.
So it's sort of a cool moment when the teams sit down because they think that they've got like sort of this perfect plan for executing their project. And then all of a sudden they, you know, have this work night and they get to meet with people they would have never gotten the opportunity to meet with. And then their project just blossoms.
That's really cool, man.
So that's the Friday night.
So that's Friday night. So they're working until midnight to put it all together so that they can present it the next day.
The next day, exactly. And then Saturday during the day is all about pitch practice, you know, making sure they've got their budget. And then 6 p.m. the doors open and like we have the big event. And look, the whole thing's branded as a celebration of community where like they dress up, there's a walkout song, there's a human tunnel that people run down whenever it's time for them to pitch. There's a whole lot of energy there that like, I think it's one of these places where, you know, like if you're feeling down about your community and you need a spirited uplift, like this is it.
Go check it out. Yeah. It sounds like a Tony Robbins event.
Well, you know, yeah, it is. It is. It's like Tony Robbins for community.
Yeah, it's like drinking the Kool-Aid, you know, about like, hey, this is a great place to live. And we got all these great ideas, which I'm sure you've been exposed to all the ideas so far. So you probably know what's coming.
I do. And I can share.
I can.
Yeah, I could tell you what's coming. You know, we've got, and I'll give you a quick overview. But basically we've got a silent disco for the special needs community. We've got an art. Yeah, isn't that cool? Disco. Imagine that. I'm jealous that I don't get to go to a silent disco. Then we've got a team called a Keaty and an art closet, which is like a, you know, the little book library concept. Yep. Mm-hmm. It's like that, but for art supplies.
Oh, sweet.
I know, which is cool. And then we've got a barbershop project, which is, again, similar like the little library concept, but basically Alton Trahan, I don't know if they're Alton, he's the president of 100 Black Men. And he wants to put little libraries in all of the barbershops.
Oh, sweet.
Because the barbershops is where it all happens.
Yeah, yeah. That's where everybody's congregating and talking about community. And
yes, exactly. I mean, you could spend, 4 hours at a barbershop, like getting your hair done.
I don't have that problem. Unfortunately, I don't get to go there anymore. But I used to. I used to go to McDonald's, where you know what I'm talking about. It's called McDonald's. It's still there, I believe, but right off of University and one block off of Pinhook.
Okay.
Little thing. It was just old guys, and I had a shoe shine guy there, Mickey, and you just go sit there and get your shoes shine, get a haircut.
I've been going to Wonder Cuts lately, but I'm like jonesing for some barbershop time. Look, then we got, a project for veterans, building, bees boxes and bird boxes in the backyard. We got a dance project, which was like a performing arts dance project downtown. We got pet waste stations to go downtown, which is pretty cool. And then a project for teenage girls, which is sort of an area that we've never done before. So
that's really cool. I mean, and you can imagine too, when you're saying that, I could hear people sitting around a campfire talking about each one of those things. Like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if like at the barbershop you had this, or like you had some art supplies that you could check out if you didn't have any,
Right.
Really, really interesting, man.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. I mean, and like over the years, we've funded 30 projects, $150,000 worth of,
Wait, so y'all done 30 projects?
30 projects.
Actually funded
30 projects.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because it's not just one person wins. It's
we do. It's all up to the backers. So that's sort of the beauty of the event too, where you've got these funders that it's $1,250 for a seat at the table, and the backers hear all the pitches, and then they go into a room for 15 minutes during the event, and all they have is 15 minutes, and they got to decide who they're going to fund with the pot of funds.
Interesting.
And so it's like everybody, it looks like a Wall Street episode, like people are, making their case for a project, but they come out, and what happens is the backers, they come in with an initial commitment, and then they come out of pocket even more because they're so sort of excited. So we fund around 3 or 4 or 5 projects every year.
Okay, cool. So I was thinking it's just one project comes out of it as a win.
Yeah, we're gonna have a good lineup.
That's fantastic. So like they could potentially all get funded.
They could. You know, we've never funded all projects before, but like, look, we're open to it. You know, I mean, like it's a contest, you know,
right?
So if you fund everybody, if everybody gets a car, then like, you know, how fun.
Like, how do you decide who wins? Like whoever gets the most money, or
it's the backer. So the backers go into that huddle and then they vote on who they're funding.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, we want to fund like these 4 projects. They walk out and we've got some big checks, and then they just announce.
I love it, man. That's super cool. So what? Out of the 30 projects, you talked about the parklet.
Yeah.
You had, the music library.
Yeah.
And musical instrument library.
Yeah.
What are some other ones that?
I actually have such a hard time answering this question that I had to print them because it comes up every time.
Yeah.
You know, and like, so anyway, I'm not going to go through them all, but I'll try and categorize. I mean, you know, Hydrate Lafayette. This was installing drinking water fountains all over Lafayette. We've had community gardens. We've had art projects, a musical instrument library, rain gardens, Crew de Canaille. Have you ever heard of Crew de Canaille?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lafayette's first walking parade.
No kidding.
Yeah. That was us. Theater.
Are you walking it too?
Huh?
You and Aaron?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, like when we can, you know, we're in a phase of life where the kids are keeping us busy.
Yeah. I get it.
Man, if you've never been, it's great. You know, projects in education, lemonade stands for kids with an entrepreneurial component, food pantries in neighborhoods, a human library, inclusive prom, seed library in Lafayette's library, scholarships for high school kids. So anyway, there's just a lot here. And
that's phenomenal, man. I mean, the fact that you had 30 projects plus more coming from an idea that came to you, and now how many people you really touched through that process is phenomenal.
Yeah, you know, I like to share this story because it means a whole lot to me. There was a project that got funded back in 2017, and it was a project called Kids Pop-Up Theater, and it was like $2,500. That's what they were awarded, and and basically the project was to like go into after-school programs and teach how to kids do impromptu sort of performances. And the girl that got funded like was really emotional at the end, and she was holding her check, and she came up to me after the event when all things were said and done, and she hugged me like tight, and she was like, I was on the verge of moving back to Orlando, and because of this project, I'm going to stay here. And she stayed here for about 5 or 6 years after that project was done. So
that's awesome.
It was just sort of an experience for her that what we always say is like, it's
give her purpose to be here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a way to fall back in love with your community.
Right. I love it, man.
So anyway, it was pretty neat. Just sort of all the little impact and ripples that come from this.
I love your shirt too. Dream it, pitch it, fund it, do it.
Yeah.
24-hour citizen project.
That's it.
And so if somebody wants to learn more about if they have an idea, what's the next step?
Well, first step would be to come to our big event on November 11th, right? At 6
check
p.m.
out November 11th.
Come check it out. You're going to love it. You're going to realize that like you want to submit an idea for it, hopefully. And then we open up applications for ideas in June of next year. So like if you've got an idea, great. If you've got money, we have a way to engage you. And if you just want to help, because you feel like you've got some kind of expertise that teams can tap into, there's a place to help out.
Well, you might get moved and compelled to help one of these guys.
Exactly. Exactly. So
how do we find you?
Well, we're all over the social channels. We've got a Facebook, 24hourcitizenproject.com, or excuse me, 24 Hour Citizen Project. We've got Instagram, So between those two places, and of course we've got a website, 24-hour Citizen Project.
And that's where you go to get tickets for the event on November 11th?
Completely free.
Oh, it's free.
Completely free.
There you go. It's free, guys.
That's it. You don't have any excuses.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. That's it. So, I mean, if you guys want to learn more about it, just go to 24-hour Citizen Project anywhere on social, basically.
Yeah.
And definitely check them out November 11th at the Keaty Center for the Arts down on Vermilion Street.
Yep. You got it. Jim, thank you for having me.
Dude, thank you on behalf of our entire community and all of these projects you've funded, man. Just thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for everything you do for Lafayette.
Well, there's a big team behind this engine, so thank you for that. I'll share that with them.
Appreciate it, brother.
Thank you, Jim.